What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about NIO. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what is really moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So NIO is down 5.62%, 604 the low, 640 the high, and somewhat okay-ish volume. So 61.4 million shares being traded, 79 is the average. No official news or any updates associated to NIO today. So the market is digesting their recent earnings, and you kind of have some hesitation. So of course, one thing that usually does move the broader market post earnings is analyst ratings, and it's not as though they're bad at all. So a couple ones that were posted today. You have a $6 price target, $5.50. Keep in mind though, even though for face value, like 2-3 weeks ago, those would be amazing, but given where NIO is at, those analysts do see downside. So that's how Wall Street's kind of interpreting those. You have a $7.10 by Bank of America, Ming, who has a 41% success rating. Most of the analysts actually have some pretty bad ratings ultimately, but then you also do have a $8.10 Citi, and so that's remains unchanged. You have a $3 sell by Barclays. Analyst has a 56% success rating, and then a $8 buy by US Tiger. And so yeah, at the end of the day, I think there was going to be some level of hesitation because, as I mentioned in my video yesterday, NIO did lose quite a lot of money. But then again, I think everyone generally knew that. Even in a lot of my previous videos, the comments, everyone just says, hey, NIO is burning through a lot of cash. In my interpretation of how Wall Street should view NIO as, it's what they are aiming and striving towards and what they've accomplished quarter over quarter and year over year. So I think they have actually improved, but of course you can kind of tear apart their earnings pretty easily, as you can kind of do to any stock. So ultimately the market is digesting this right here, and you don't really see that many institutions lining up to buy. So at the time of doing this video, only 4 transactions on the secondary market above $100,000, 1 sell, 3 buys, but still in comparison to even yesterday, just big money is not really getting involved all that much. Dark pool, this is primarily used by shorts and other large entities and hedge funds. This is a little bit more popular today, but nothing substantial. So again, goes to show that like hedge funds aren't really buying, most likely based on a lot of the high expectations that NIO management made and kind of laid forth on their earnings. People are just like, hey, show me now. That's how I think institutions are interpreting their earnings. They'd rather maybe buy NIO at higher prices if NIO can actually do what they say they're going to do. Because at this stage in the game, just you have a lot of speculation on Q3 and Q4, especially Q4. But one thing that has been very consistent over the last 3 trading days has been shorts. They've been, regardless of NIO moving higher, they increase. They kind of stay still, NIO shorts increase. Even right now, net shorts are increasing 1.16 million shares. 11.57% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 178.45 million shares overall are being shorted. Short score on a side note is 68.23. One thing I do want to draw your attention to though is the flow. And so ultimately under this section right here, so the trade overview, you see a lot of smaller transactions, and so that does insinuate algos are a little bit more active today. And so at the end of the day, you can kind of even just see from the market position, there's a lot of new walls that popped up. So comparing even the last couple of trading days to today, a lot more institutions are wanting to sell, especially around that looks as though that 630 and above. One thing, as I've mentioned, that typically a lot of people like to see is gaps to get filled. And so when NIO did jump up, which was very impressive, mind you, but this gap, you can kind of see right there, it needs to be filled. So potentially that's what shorts, what their plan is, to break it to that 550 range, thus causing that gap to be filled and potentially allowing NIO to really move higher. But today seems to be just a very negative day. Based on this, you can kind of see it kind of puts in perspective some of the recent changes. So this one right here went from $4.30 to $7.10. Jeff didn't change his rating, so kept it at $8.10. You have that $3 sell, still kept it as a sell. So it looks as though the long-term bulls and bears are still kind of sticking to their sentiment, so they're not really changing all that much. Maybe that's one thing that also Wall Street is seeing as more of a potential gray area, is just even the bulls and the bears are waiting for NIO to actually do what they say they're going to do. On the actual chart though, things are actually okay. So right now it is still above that 10-day moving average. So yes, today sucks overall, but as far as the trend, things are still kind of confirmed. So that's something to keep in mind. Still above all the key pivotal moving averages. Stochastic RSI is somewhat neutral in nature, so it is at 66. So not really overbought nor oversold. But regardless, most likely you will see a lot of increase in volatility just based on just the mapping of the large transactions. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. Overall, though, going quickly over here, though, looking at the options, you are seeing 8.3 million in calls, 2.4 in puts, and then 48% of all the options being done are bearish in nature. So even behind the scenes, looks as though that big money sees a little bit more downside and some consolidation. From a bulls standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 650 plus. So still a certain level of optimism, although even the bulls though, the optimism has definitely diminished because prior to their earnings, people were anticipating like 750 plus. So it's gone down a little bit. Aside from that, the bears are anticipating for it to be sub $6. So where we are now at, kind of level ground for the most part, but there still is a little bit more upside, something to just be aware of. Aside from all that though, with it at 622, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot, so 586 is going to be that strong support. I'm looking at the 1-day chart on a side note, so these are very strong support and resistance points, so this will appeal to more of the investor type of mentality. And then 680 followed by 738 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. Moving over to the 4-hour, just to appeal for a lot of the day traders and swing traders. Right now it's trading between this pivot and this S1. So 614 is going to be a strong support, followed by 596. Flip side, 643 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. And it kind of did bounce off of that general area. So we do know that is a heavy resistance. And just on a side note, you always know it's a heavy resistance is if it kind of bounces off like a few cents below these levels. So that does mean that there is a lot of selling. And so instead of waiting for that 643, people inch up, right? And so ultimately, as I've showed you, there's a lot of walls around here. So big institutions do want to sell, especially around this pivot point. So let me know your thoughts on NIO. Do you think institutions, this whole scenario over the last couple of weeks was more of just a pump and now institutions are kind of temporarily dumping it? Do you think today is just going to be a one-off? And do you believe, based on a lot of the high kind of milestones and targets that management gave itself yesterday, do you think those are achievable? I think that's kind of the biggest thing, right? Because if NIO can actually execute, then of course the stock price will move higher appropriately. And I think recently what we saw with the stock price is the market actually be impressed with that L90 and a lot of the demand and them actually hitting their milestone. I actually saw a couple comments like, hey, when did NIO actually hit their milestones ever? And from when I've covered it, yes, they've had a lot of high expectations, but with the most recent 10,000 in August being delivered for the L90, they hit that. So clearly the market saw that as a positive and the stock price moved up accordingly. So of course, if they hit all their Q3 and Q4 expectations, similar type of action could move NIO higher. It just will come down to if they can actually hit it or not. I know it kind of sounds very basic, but that's what Wall Street clearly is seeing as a big deal for NIO. So let me know your thoughts on NIO. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Give yourself a shout out if you did buy, if you sold, and what you've been doing with NIO. I actually just have been doing more of a separate series as well. I don't know if some of you may or may not have watched it, but I'm doing a small account challenge with Mumu, and I actually did buy NIO. So at 640 something, so I'm at a little bit of a loss, but What's your viewpoint on NIO? Do you think right now is a good time to buy for those individuals that have like a kind of short-term or even a long-term mentality, or not? One final thing, if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, pop over to my Patreon. Definitely worthwhile. I put out day trades every single day, and many of them are absolutely on point. As well, I do put out numerous swing trades multiple times throughout the week. So definitely worthwhile to kind of pop over there. NIO was actually one of my buy signals when it was at $4. I said that it was going to go to $6, and I also recommended to do call options on it. And for those individuals that did follow through with that, you would have made some pretty good bank, but definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.